Hello, hello, and welcome to Overtime. I was going to point out that, of course, I can read the live chat, but on the flip side, I think they're all quite aware. Welcome to Overtime. Thank you for joining us. A lot's going on. So, first of all, we do have a live chat back. I apologize. On our previous show, it appears we did not have a live chat, and YouTube has been experiencing some difficulties, and a lot of people have found their live chats disabled. Ours has returned, and hopefully will remain. Two stories that I want to discuss right now. The first is Steve Bannon. We mentioned him briefly on our last one, and he is one of four people subpoenaed. And it looks like I was a little surprised by the subpoena. I'm trying to figure out why, and figured it was sort of ancillary. He has repeatedly claimed that he has not spoken much to Trump ever since he was ousted and left the White House reasonably early, actually, in the Trump White House. However, it looks as if that was not true, and what CNN is, well, actually, I will get to CNN in a minute. The Washington Post is reporting that he has actually been in constant contact with Trump and was, in fact, one of the architects of January 6th. Now, the claim at this point is that he was at the time fully aware of what was going to happen on the 6th, and that he was behind it. Whether or not he was aware of the gallows and the intent behind that is what fully aware means. We still don't know, but he clearly knew that there was going to be a riot and that it was going to attempt to break into the Capitol. At least that's what they're claiming. Biden has said that he will not invoke executive privilege. The reason that's important is because what he actually means is executive privilege covering all White House records. It looks as if the records regarding what the president was doing on the 6th, what Trump was doing on the 6th, is something that so far has not been released and has been covered by executive privilege of the original Trump administration. Those records are now under the purview of the current Biden administration, and in general, it is customary for current administrations to not pass those kinds of records on to investigations on the hopes that future administrations would show them the same courtesy. In general, it's also the same as this courtesy that in general, former presidents of the United States don't speak ill of current and sitting presidents of the United States. So there's a very deliberate reason for that. Trump has violated all of these norms and has encountered some violations, starting, I think, most notably with Ruth Bader Ginsburg, of many of the norms about how, A, the presidents speak to each other, and B, how, different branches of government relate to each other. At any rate, it appears to be accepted that those records are no longer covered by executive privilege that could be issued by Trump. Only that could be issued by Biden, and Biden has now said that he believes invoking executive privilege would be inappropriate, and his administration has said that if, in fact, those records are requested by any organization, including but not limited to the January 6th Commission, that the Biden administration will turn them over. It looks like they will be sought after. There are a number of things that they want to know, including, was he speaking with Bannon? And if so, what was he saying? They also want to know, initial reports were that he was gleeful and running around ecstatic that all of this was happening, and how and why they would like to discuss. On to what CNN has now said about, and let's see, according to CNN, there was a conversation, and this, we reported earlier that Bob Woodward and Robert Costa have written a book on what happened during January 6th, and in it they've made a number of claims and have basically said that he is explicitly guilty of sedition and or treason in the attempt to overturn the U.S. election. We now know that Bob Woodward and Robert Costa have recounted a conversation and Bannon has admitted that he helped plan the rally, and it looks like, hello, KCA, by the way, Randy, nice to see you. But this conversation is quoted by Costa and Woodward. Quote, and this is Bannon speaking. You've got to call Pence off the fucking ski slopes and get him back here today. This is a crisis. This, he apparently said, this was, I think, on December, last days in December, December 30th, this conversation took place. You've got to call him and get him off. So this is when Pence was vacationing in Colorado. People are going to go, what the fuck is going on here? We're going to bury Biden on January 6th. Fucking bury him. If Republicans could cast enough of a shadow on Biden's victory on the 6th, Bannon believed, sorry, so this is now, I don't know, this has got to be quoting the book. If Republicans could cast enough of a shadow on Biden's victory on January 6th, Bannon believed that it would be impossible for Biden to govern, and most Americans would consider him illegitimate. This would they would dismiss him and wait for Trump to run again. Of course, there's no, there's absolutely no precedent for that, no mechanism for that in the Constitution. So there is also a further discussion of Trump and Pence's disagreements over how this should be handled. Pence, of course, they hung a gallows ostensibly to hang Pence for acts of treason in doing what he is legally required to do, which was to certify the election. Woodward and Costa continued to write, "It was a planned revolution. Steve Bannon had a vision. He brought it to life, bringing everything down and emerging with the power." So now keep in mind, this is not the commission saying this. This is Bob Woodward, who, if I have to tell you who he is, you probably landed on this channel by accident. And Costa and their book on the in-depth analysis of what they say was going on in the White House. So this is utterly stunning, and would mean that Bannon has, of course, been lying about his contacts with Trump. And so we're going to get into this. I hadn't done a deep dive in this. I hadn't really thought I knew Bannon had at least some ancillary, and he had, in fact, said that he had been. My understanding, it doesn't matter. At any rate, things seem to be moving rapidly against Bannon. I don't know what's going to happen, but the suggestion at this point is that most of what happened that day was, in fact, pre-planned. Unlike this, well, it was a couple of crazy Antifa, by the way, who went out and did something stupid. No, it looks at this point as if Bannon had planned most of it and thought that this would end the Biden administration. It's extraordinarily serious. So because it dovetailed into what we covered just 2 or 3 hours ago, I figured I would bring it up. We're going to keep an eye on it, and I think at some point soon we're going to end up doing a deep dive on it. On to our second story, and what I'd like to do is, so we now have the House passing House Resolution 3755. This resolution would guarantee a woman her right to an abortion. Now, this bill has a couple of interesting caveats, but in essence, it is an attempt to enshrine Roe v. Wade, which is actually just an interpretation of the law. It is precedent, but it isn't law per se. It's a fine difference. Most of us say it's law. It's the interpretation of the law, and it can be revoked. So, okay, so Michael, interesting. If it was planned, does that mean Trump didn't incite a coup? Yeah, if it was planned, if he planned it, then he didn't. Well, he probably still incited it, but he just didn't incite it then and there. Nonetheless, so the idea behind this would be to enshrine Roe v. Wade into U.S. law. Now, at present, it looks like the entire Democratic caucus on the Senate side will approve it. Obviously, the bill has to pass both the House and the Senate. The White House has kept quiet up until today as to what they would do if this reached their desk. They're now saying that they will sign it if it reaches their desk. So we have a number of things occurring here. First of all, for the first time in decades, we actually really do have abortion as a issue being addressed irrefutably on a national scale. That has not happened in a very long time. May not have even happened to this extent since Roe v. Wade. We have one House of Congress, of Congress passing a bill that would permanently make abortion legal in the U.S. That's a stunning move. Now, so far, it looks like the entire Democratic caucus in the Senate is on board. That's actually only 48. There are 2 independents. It is believed that they are on board. It is believed that Susan Collins, who should be given some kind of award for coming up on every major vote as being the linchpin, I said earlier, and it's going to come down to Susan Collins. And my friend was like, when doesn't it come down to Susan Collins? It may not come down to Susan Collins. Susan Collins has said that she would vote against it. And she said that even though she is in fact pro-choice, she would vote against it because it would require all medical providers to provide abortions and would not allow doctors who, for some ethical reason or for some religious reason, believe that they should not or do not want to provide abortions. It would not permit them to do that. They would be in denial of the woman's rights to elect for that. So that's Susan Collins's claim. Now, it's hard to tell whether or not she actually means that. She is, in fact, pro-choice. She needs an out because she wants to stay pro-choice. If this bill looks like it might pass with her vote, the chances are reasonably good that she'd switch and vote for it. But the reality is this thing is going to hit a filibuster. So even though they actually have 50 right now and they have the tiebreaker, they would need to flip 10 Republicans in order to get this thing through. Assuming they could get Collins and at least 1 or 2 other independent Republicans, assuming they could get those, they'd still be 8 short. So it doesn't hurt her to say, nope, not going to vote for it. In fact, it helps her a lot. If they could get the other 8, you could probably count on her vote. But the question is where are the other 8 going to come from? So is this a huge deal? It's a big enough deal that there is a long shot possibility they could get the 8. It's unlikely, and I am assuming that Collins will flip. She has said she won't. I find that unlikely. She will probably flip if they get the other 8. There's no reason for her to flip and every reason to say she's against it until then. So they're looking for 8. 8 Democrats in this entire thing. Well, you could probably find 4 or 5 that are actually pro-choice. Willing to die on that hill? Don't know. So we do know that the House Senate Majority Leader has said that they're going to vote on this rapidly, which suggests to me that he doesn't think it's going to pass because he's not waiting until they have a full count from the whips. So he thinks it's not going to pass, and he's still going forward. Roe v. Wade is still the precedent. However, the problem is Roe v. Wade is about to be readdressed. Roe v. Wade, there are a number of people who are making Roe v. Wade go back to the Supreme Court and very rapidly. In Texas, in fact. This is, in part, a response to the new Texas bill in which essentially has made it impossible for women to get an abortion because in most cases, by the time they actually knew and were able to follow through the hoops of going through 2 doctor's visits and everything they need to do to actually go through the process of getting an abortion, once they've gone through that, it's past the time when they can legally do it. This is designed to remove their right to an abortion, but do so through just hurdles and obstacles that make it impossible, despite the fact that technically it's still legal. However, Alan Braid is a San Antonio physician, and last week he volunteered that he has performed an abortion since the law went into effect. He did this deliberately in order to get sued. He's now been sued by 3 private citizens because public citizens, public officials can't sue him. This is how they get around the law that says that they're not allowed to prohibit abortions for women. They're not. They can't enforce the law. There is no public official who can enforce this law. It's the citizens who enforce this law. We've discussed this before. This is unprecedented and extraordinarily dangerous. The reason this violates standing, the principle of standing. You can't sue somebody unless you personally have suffered some loss at the other person's hand. These people have no standing. It violates any. You cannot act as your own prosecutor. You need to have an independent third party who prosecutes on behalf of the state. This empowers every citizen essentially to act as their own prosecutor. Now, it's absolutely stunning, and it incentivizes by putting bounties on their head, $10,000 just for winning this suit. It's utterly insane. But the point is, Alan Braid, I don't know, sorry, my apologies, has deliberately informed people that he has violated the suit so that this can go straight to the Supreme Court. The question is, what's going to happen when it gets to the Supreme Court? And so far, SCOTUS has been very much against these kinds of shenanigans by other states. They've been against these kinds of shenanigans by Texas, and this certainly isn't the first time they've done this. In fact, there's a law explicitly on the book stopping Texas from doing this kind of thing, and they did it anyway. Now, when this gets to the Supreme Court, nobody's entirely sure what's going to happen because Trump did successfully stack the Supreme Court to the right. So this is, in terms of the judicial branch, the most vulnerable Roe v. Wade has ever been since the decision was handed down, and everybody's looking to have it addressed and clarified in one way or another. So that everybody's essentially trying to get this in front of this Supreme Court. The idea behind this bill would be an attempt to bypass the Supreme Court because the Supreme Court does not get to make law. They only get to interpret it. And if Nancy Pelosi is successful in passing this law, then most of these issues become moot. It's the easiest, not the easiest. It would be the easiest way to do this if you could get it through the Senate. The problem is, of course, the filibuster, as it almost always is. Nancy Pelosi, by the way, it should be noted, has 4 children. She's a Catholic. She personally does not appear to believe in abortions, but she also does not believe that this is something that can be legislated and that every woman does have a right to make the choice for themselves. So there's actually a conversation which I'd like to get to. And in fact, let me see. There was a interesting conversation along that lines. I really don't want to. Taylor Greene, who is insane and probably needs significant medical attention, she's a representative Republican and has just utterly unhinged. You should all be ashamed, Greene told Democrats. You should. Now let's see. She had just actually they were assembling for a news conference, so she just apparently shouted that out during the news conference because of reasons. Admittedly, it's an improvement than over her opening the mail slot of her colleagues and shouting in through the mail slot. I wish I could make that up. I'm not that good a writer. Representative Dingell replied, well, you should practice what you are taught in church, respect your neighbor. And she replied, are you kidding me? Try being a Christian and supporting life. And then as Dingell moved away, Greene added, watch your step, lady, you're going to fall down, control yourself. So it's, I wasn't even, there was another, there's been it's gotten heated. At any rate, that's why this is important. It does suggest also that Democrats have finally found a voice which they have not had for quite some time. Their only voice, really, up until now, has been in opposition of Trump. Well, anyone can define themselves in terms of what they oppose. That's very easy to do, and it's not a bad way to win, too, if you talk about all the things you oppose. Republicans have mastered this one. We oppose people stealing our jobs. We oppose immigrants coming in and taking, you know, what's ours, even though we're just kind of leaving it around lying all over the place. But nonetheless, we oppose this, and this. This is the first time that the Democrats, in quite some time, seem to have found a voice and said, not only are we for a woman's right to choose, but we are going to go out now and pass a bill that enshrines it into law. And between Biden and Pelosi, they seem to have garnered some genuine forward momentum. Where that goes, I don't know. But it's interesting, and it's worth noting. So we actually have a show. We have a call-in show, After Dark, in about a half hour. So what I'm going to do real quick is I'm going to go through the live chat, which still seems to be working. So it's been a day of miracles. I'll go through the live chat and see if there's anything I missed. And yeah, Mississippi, I think, is going to be, actually, I think Mississippi is December 1st. They're, the SCOTUS is going to hear that December 1st. It's whether or not they merge all of these into one, or how they do that, I don't know. But SCOTUS is going to be hearing them certainly on the 1st. And who knows? I think, I hate to, I know I have a lot of liberal friends. I made this point once or twice, and I've already offended some people. I'm not sure I'm against the original decision, at least as I understand it. I was out for some time, and I didn't have a chance to really go into it. But as I understand it, the original reason that the Supreme Court did not weigh in on Texas was because, for the same reason they didn't weigh in when Texas sued Alabama. Standing was one, but the other problem is, in the case of Texas's most recent law, until they actually do something with that law, until there's an appeal, until there's a case of some kind, the court really can't weigh in on it. Somebody has to be affected. There has to be a victim of that law. So even if the law is completely unconstitutional, until that law is enacted, you don't have a victim. Now, I suppose you could argue the victim is the people but nonetheless, I'm not sure I disagree with their reason for not hearing it, if that, in fact, was the reason, at least as far as I understand it. I'd like them to hear it, but you still can't. I mean, when it worked for me in Texas, and they said, hey, Texas, you have no right to be here. So, at any rate, yeah, I don't, what was the other one? Somebody had made that comment about, They don't seem to care about life, that I can tell, Maya, and I'm not telling you anything you don't know. They care about unborn children a lot. Whether this is virtue signaling, whether this is a stand-in for another issue in their minds, whether this is just them comforting themselves, I don't know. They care about unborn children a tremendous amount. Once the child is born, that I can tell, they stop caring. And that's kind of a trope. I'm not a big fan of tropes, but it's true that I can tell. So I'm not going to not say it just because it's a fucking trope. The reality is, once the child is born, they don't really seem to care about food stamps. They don't seem to care about the mother, which, if you really think that the mother is worthless and shouldn't be cared about, fine. I mean, I think that's sick and disgusting, but fine. You do you on that. But if the mother can't get adequate health care, if the mother can't get an adequate job, if the mother can't get a car to get to that work, and if the mother has all of these burdens, it's going to affect the child. So if you don't care about the mother, you actually don't care about the child either. And there's no way around that I can tell. So, no, I think, yeah, they don't. And they can't kill people fast enough in Texas. I mean, they're putting in a fast lane in their execution. Let's execute. will abort the abortion doctor in its 54th trimester. I mean, it strikes me as extraordinarily hypocritical, but then again, what do I know? So, let's just see. I don't see anything else. I am going to need to get going. We're going to have another show in about a half hour. I've reached out to a whole bunch of people who said they're going to show up, so hopefully we'll have a lot of people in the hang, and it's an open hang. Anyone who wants to join us, you can just Skype us. It'll be live at 𝐂𝐚𝐥𝐿.com on Skype, and we've got, let's see, hold on a sec. Yeah, I don't. Yeah, Bob Woodward is a big name, and I will tell you. Okay, two things about Bob Woodward. First of all, he's a lucky son of a bitch. Part of the reason he's famous and part of why Woodward and Bernstein have made all these huge names isn't because of skill. It's because of luck. They stumbled onto a story. It was a very big story. They were very young new reporters, and poof, turns out they hit something really big. That's true. Turns out they have skill too. And they've had skill since. If they didn't have skill during that, they'd have botched it, because that was a huge story, and if they had screwed anything up, the entire country scrutinized that story. So that story could have landed on anybody's lap, and any two buffoons could have seen it probably to the conclusion if they had a little luck on their side. These two did it right nonetheless. So that doesn't make them the greatest journalists ever, but they're still pretty good. And they also are keenly aware that they have to protect their names and reputations, because once you have a reputation like that, you're never getting it back if you lose it. So Woodward has done a lot since then, and so far he's always been on the money and extraordinarily reliable, unless somebody here knows something I don't know about. So, all right, I think I'll leave it at that. Anybody who wants to continue the discussion, please join us on our Discord, and you can have that discussion there. Like I said, we'll be broadcasting again probably in about a half hour. This time, we may really definitely be a little late because it's added another show. But, and we'll keep an eye on all this. Anybody who wants to discuss it further, we can have a chat in our Discord. People are dropping on our news channels always, the latest of what's going on. So we're going to stay on top of that. Thank you very much for joining us. If you've gotten this far, hopefully you like the show. Hit that like and subscribe button. Ring the bell. That really does help us out in the algorithm. I would not take the time to stop and say it if I was wasting your time, or I care a little less about wasting your time. I certainly wouldn't do it if I was wasting my time. Oh, bad joke. All right. At any rate, thank you all for joining us. And what I'm going to do actually real quick is, because YouTube's just been a little flaky. So normally we exit this show pretty quickly. This is a no nonsense. It's just it's the news program. We go straight to the bumper out and we're done. However, the YouTube has been cutting off the ends of streams, and so we're going to add just a minute buffer. The easiest way to do that is just run through the full credits. So you guys are going to be lucky, get to see the credits, and then in about half an hour, I will be back. Have a nice evening all. Thank you.